This class is for Tuesday, March the 31st, and we are on page number 264, page 264, and we're going to talk about zero-factor property. Zero-factor property. Now we know this, that anything times 0 is equal to 0, such as 5 times 0, of course, is equal to 0. If you have two letters and you multiply these two letters, let's do A times B. If I tell you that that equals 0, then you know that either the A or the B has to be 0. Both of them could be 0, but one of them has to be. If you want to look at your book there, and let's talk about the lesson here, and let's read a little bit of it. Our book says there on page number 264, zero-factor property, it says in multiplication, 0 times any number is equal to 0. Also, if two non-zero numbers are multiplied, the product cannot be 0. So if you have any two other numbers, 5 times 2, 3 times 6, and it can't equal 0. These observations lead to an important property commonly used in algebra. It's called the zero-factor property. This property states that if a product of two unknown quantities is known to be 0, then one or both of the quantities must be 0. So in algebra, the zero-factor property is used to solve polynomial equations. So again, the basic rule there in a little blue box next to that is if for any two numbers, A and B, if A, B equals 0, then A or B has to be 0 or both of them. So what is this all about? All right, it's just another way to solve equations. It's called solving an equation using the zero-factor property. Now they're going to give you an example. All right, the first example they give you is x times x plus 2 equals 0. Now a key that you know you're going to use the zero-factor property is when your equation, you want it to equal 0. When it equals 0, we now can use this, right? And so what they're going to do basically is they're going to break this down into two smaller equations and have two answers that will both fulfill the equation. Say, that sounds confusing. Really not, all right? One of them has to be 0 in order to get this, but here we go. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take each term, term's not the right word, variable and solve it. All right, so first I'm going to take this x. So I'm going to do x equals 0, which that's pretty easy. It's done. And then x plus 2 equals 0. Now you solve that small equation, and if you do that, you're going to subtract 2, so x equals negative 2. So my two answers are 0 and negative 2. Now, so that don't even make sense. Well, we go back to our original problem. All right. Our original problem said x times x plus 2 would equal 0. So if x is 0, all right, if x is 0, then I'm going to have 0 times 0 plus 2 equals 0. 0 plus 2 is 2, and 0 times 2 equals 0. All right, so that worked. Now we go back. Our other answer was negative 2. So if I go back and I check it using that same so negative 2 times negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. What's negative 2 plus 2? 0. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. So my two answers that solve this equation are 0 and negative 2. Both of those would solve this equation. All right, now that's all there is to this. Obviously, it gets a little bit more intense, but you're basically going to factor it down. You can see the rules down there at the bottom of the page. Look at this with me real quick while I erase this board. All right. Number 1, our first rule is this: using the zero-factor property to solve a polynomial equation, arrange the equation in standard form. In other words, you're going to want to get the formula to where it says x squared plus x plus a number equals 0. All right. Number 2, factor the polynomial. All right, you're going to factor down like we know we've been doing, using all the rules and methods we know to factor. Number 3, apply the zero-factor property and set each factor equal to 0. And then solve each equation. And then you can check it. So we go back up now to the examples on page number 265, and we're going to see the very first one of these examples. And the first one they give us is x squared minus 5x plus 6. X squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. All right? So we want to make sure, number one, that we arrange it in standardized form. It is that. X squared, 5x, 6. All right, it's in the correct order, and it ends in a 0. Number two, factor the polynomial. So we're going to take this is the polynomial, and we're going to factor it according to what we know to do. All right, so we can't draw anything out of it, so we're going to break this down backwards, foiling. X times x is x squared. I know my signs are going to be a negative times a negative, because that would equal a positive. Added together is a negative. Now what times what is 6? Added together is 5. 3 and 2. All right? So we factored it down, and now we're going to use that 0 property to actually find out what x equals. So all we've done so far, remember, we've just been factoring down. I told you we're getting somewhere. Now we take this formula, and we can actually solve this equation. All right? So we take each of these, and we're going to break these down individually. So I have x minus 3 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. So x is going to equal 3, and x is going to equal 2. All right, 3 and 2. Now what you want to do is you want to go back and make sure you can check it. So I'm going to go back to my original problem here and plug in one of these numbers. First we'll do the 3. So I had to have 3 squared minus 5 times 3 plus 6 should equal 0. 3 squared is 9, minus 5 times 3 is 15, plus 6 equals 0. 9 minus 15 is negative 6, plus 6 equals 0, 0 equals 0. Pretty cool, right? I can do the other one, x is 2, so I'm going to solve it over here. X squared minus 5x plus 6 should equal 0. Now I'm going to use the 2 instead. So 2 squared minus 5. Sorry, you can't leave. But 2 squared minus 5 times 2 plus 6 equals 0. 2 squared is 4, minus 5 times 2 is 10, plus 6 should equal 0. 4 minus 10 is negative 6, plus 6 equals 0, 0 equals 0. So I know with this equation that I started out with, x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0, I know that there are two possible answers using the 0 factor property that would solve this equation. That's 3 and 2. That's what we're doing. So, all right, so the point is, and I'll do some more, all right, you're going to make sure, just like your rules say, make sure it's in the right order, make sure it says equals 0, factor it down using all the little methods we know how to factor, which you did Friday and Monday, and then you're going to end up with two binomials, and then you're going to solve those by putting equals 0 on each of them. You're going to get your two answers. You can make sure you're right by checking it, by plugging that number back into your original equation. That's really all there is to it. All right? So let's look at the second example. All right, the second example on page 265 says this. It says x squared equals 9x. All right? X squared equals 9x. Now again, our instructions are, number one, arrange it in standardized form. So I need to get it to where everything's on one side and it equals 0. So I need to move this over here by subtracting 9x. All right, so now I have x squared minus 9x equals 0. Okay, now I can't really, you want to factor out, I can't backwards FOIL, so I'm going to factor out what? The x, which leaves me with x minus 9 equals 0. Now I can't do any other factoring with this, so I'm going to take this now and I'm going to find my two answers by taking just the x, which is by itself, x equals 0, and then x minus 9 equals 0. So my answers are 0 and a positive 9, because I would add 9 to that to take it over there. So 0 and 9. So now I can go back up there and I can plug it in, and it should work. All right, let's do the first one. We'll take a 0. 0 squared equals 9 times 0. 0 squared is 0. 9 times 0 is 0. All right? Let's plug in the other one, 9. So I'd have 9 squared equals 9 times 9. 9 squared is 81 equals 9 times 9 is 81. All right? So zero factor allows us to be able to solve and, find the right answer there. So it's pretty easy. They give you another example at the bottom of the page, right? And that example says this. It says x squared plus 10x equals a negative 25. So again, the first thing I have to do is get it in standardized form, which it equals 0. So I got to move this over here. So everything else is in the correct order. All right. And so now I have it in the standardized form. Now I'm going to factor it. I know I can't draw anything out, so I'm going to have x times x. My signs both have to be positive. 5 times 5 is 25. 5x and 5x is 10x. And I factored it out. Now, whenever I actually put the equals 0 to each of these to find my two options, you're going to notice both of these are the same. Obviously, it has a name. It's called a repeating, I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. Repeating, I forgot what the word is. Anyways, it's a repeating answer. Sorry about the word. So what you're going to do is you're going to put x plus 5 equals 0, so x equals negative 5. So that's the answer, all right, because there is no other answer that you can put in there. All right, so since it's a repeat, you can go back and check it, all right? I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. It's a repeating solution. There you go, repeating solution, all right? So I can go back now and I can plug it in and check it, and you should get the same answer. So I go back to my original problem. So I have negative 5 squared plus 10 times negative 5 should equal a negative 25. Negative 5 squared is 25 plus 10 times negative 5 would be a negative 50 equals negative 25. 25 plus negative 50 is negative 25 equals negative 25. And I know I'm right. All right. Now, remember when we did all the factoring, the last factors was when we had 4 terms. And remember we had to factor out what we could and have 2 binomials. You can do it with this too. All right, so let me give you one more example here. Factor by grouping is what we call that. Do you remember? All right, and the last example they give you is on page 266, number 1. It says 2x cubed, I believe. 2x cubed minus x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. So again, the first thing you want to do is make sure it is in standardized form. X cubed, x squared, x, and 4. And we have an equals 0. So far we're doing great. And so now we want to factor it down. Now, because it's more than 3 terms, it's 4, we have to factor it by grouping. I hope you remember that. All right, factor by grouping. So I'm going to put 2x cubed minus x squared. All right, and then I know that's negative, so I put a negative. I'm going to have to change all these signs. All right, so this would be a negative 8x minus 4 equals 0. All right, so no, positive 8x. All right, and so we factor this out, and then what we want to do is, again, you're going to factor out the x squared, which leaves me with 2x minus 1. And then over here, I'm going to factor out, I have my negative sign, I'm going to factor out 4, which will give me 2x minus 1. Now you have your 2 binomials that will solve this. Obviously, 2x minus 1 is shared. And then remember how we did this the other day. You have x squared minus 4. All right. Now, we have to factor things down. Now we have to factor them down completely as far as they go. This one's kind of interesting. All right, so that's as far as I can go. With this one, you have 2 perfect squares with a negative. So I hope you remember what that means. All right. That means you can factor that out further. So now I'm going to have 2x minus 1, and then I have x plus 2, x minus 2. because that one could be factored down into 2 more. All right, and so now I'm going to have 3 possible solutions. I take each of these. I put 2x minus 1 equals 0. Then I'm going to do x plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. So this one's obviously got x equals 2, x equals negative 2, and on this one, I'm going to add 1, 2x equals 1, so x is going to equal 1/2. All right, so my 3 solutions are 1/2, negative 2, and 2. 3 solutions, which are going to find common when you have 4 terms. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Might. Sometimes you have 2, but normally you have 3. Now, so you can see they can check that at the bottom of the page. I'm not going to do all that checking. But the bottom of the page 266, please take a moment, look at it. When they plugged in the half, it equaled out 0 equals 0. When they plugged in the 2, you ended up with 0 equals 0. When they plugged in the negative 2, you still end up with 0 equals 0. So they all checked out. And so you had 3 possible solutions for that equation. So it's kind of cool. All right. So let's go to the problems now. All right, 1 through 26 on page 267. I'm going to do a few of these, and then I'll assign your work, and that will be Tuesday's work, all right? But if you'll look at it real quick on page 267, let's do a few of these. I will do number 1 and number 26, all right? So 1 says x plus 5 equals 0, all right? So I can't factor anything out of that. It's already done pretty much. So I'm going to take the x equals 0, and then I'm going to have x plus 5 equals 0. This one I can take x equals a negative 5 by subtracting 5. So my 2 answers are 0, negative 5. And that's what you're going to put for the answer for the first one is 0 and negative 5. All right. Let's go all the way down to number 26. All right, number 26. 26 says x cubed minus 2x squared. X cubed minus 2x squared equals 24x. So again, I want to get this into its standardized form. And so I'm going to bring that 24x over here. So I have x cubed minus 2x squared minus 24x equals 0. All right. Now it's in my standardized form where it's cubed squared x. See, you don't have a number. Well, hold out. All right. What can I do? I can factor out an x, which leaves me with x squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Now I can factor this one down further, which would be x and the 2 binomials. All right. Which is going to give me x and x plus minus and 6 times 4, and the large one needs to be that. So 4 times negative 6 is negative 24, negative 6x, positive 4x gives me negative 2x, all right? Equals 0. So what is my final answer? I take each of these. I do x equals 0, that took care of that. X plus 4 equals 0, which would give me a x equals negative 4. And then x minus 6 equals 0, which gives me x equals 6. So here's my 3 answers. 0, negative 4, and 6. 0, negative 4, and 6. All right. So I want you to try real quick number, I'm going to give you a quick pausing video, pausing screen. So you can try out numbers, why don't you do number, I'm going to make it hard on you, 10 and 12. All right, 10, let's do 10, 12, 18. 10, 12, 18. All right, so you do 10, 12, 18. All right, hit pause, and then when you're done, hit play, and we'll see how you did. 10, 12, 18. All right, how'd you do? Let's check it out. All right, number 10. All right, number 10, I have right here on the board. 2x minus 7, 3x plus 4 equals 0. All right, so what you're going to do, again, first is it's already factored, so you don't have to do anything there. So you're just going to take the 2x minus 7 equals 0, and then 3x plus 4 equals 0. That's why it's called zero factor property. And then you're going to solve these. Answers are going to look weird, but they're right. So I have 2x minus 7 equals 0. I'm going to move the 7 over. So I have 2x plus 7, or equals 7, because I add 7. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and x equals 7 over 2. Then over here, I have 3x plus 4 equals 0. I'm going to subtract that 4, take it over. So I have 3x equals negative 4. Then I'm going to divide by 3, and x equals negative 4 over 3. So the two answers you should have is 7 over 2 and negative 4 over 3. It's fine to leave them improper. You could have, I guess, 3.5 and negative 1 1/3. All right? But both those answers are great. Now over here, I have number 12. All right, number 12 says x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Now it's in the correct form, but I have to backwards FOIL it. So I know it's going to be x times x is x squared. My signs are both going to be positive. Excuse me. Now what times what is 12? Added together is 7. 4 and 3. So I have x plus 4, x plus 3 equals 0. Then I just take the x plus 4 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. And then I'm going to get x is negative 4 and negative 3. And if you go back and plug it in, it would work out. I'll do one of those for you just to check it real quick. All right, I'll use the negative 4. So negative 4 squared plus 7 times negative 4 plus 12 should equal 0. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 28, because positive 7, negative 4, plus 12 should equal 0. 16 minus 28 is negative 12 plus 12, and so 0 equals 0. So, pretty amazing. All right, so then I asked you to do number 18 as well. All right, number 18. All right, 18. Number 18 says x squared minus 49 equals 0. X squared minus 49 equals 0. It's in the correct order, so I have to factor it down, which this one should be pretty easy. I have x plus 7, x minus 7. Then I take each of these, x plus 7 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0. So my two answers are going to be negative 7 and positive 7. That was that one. 4 terms. I don't see any with 4 terms, is there? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't see any with... Oh, 25. No, that one's still going to be 2 terms, so... No, you're good. All right, so in any case, why don't you finish this? All right, so your homework for Tuesday, March the 31st, is page 267. I want you to do numbers 1 through 26. We've already done some of them. But I want you to do all those using the zero factor property, all right? And again, just follow these steps. If you didn't quite get it, go back, watch this video again, or zoom through it. But it's pretty simple, all right? So you're just going to get it in its correct form. So you should have x squared or x cubed plus, put them all, equals 0. And then you're going to factor it down like we've been doing the last few weeks. And then you're going to take your two binomials, or your factors, and each of them equals 0, and you're going to get 2 answers. And glancing down at this, every one of them has 2 answers. Now, some of them might be a repeating answer, or, just look for that. But you should be good. All right? The only weird one I see is 22, but I'm going to let you have at it, so see how you do. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.